Hello. Remember to like and subscribe, please. I have a subscriber goal of 10 subscribers by the end of June. And also click the bell button for more videos. Welcome to the video. So today we're going to be talking about Jane Eyre, a novel by Charlotte Bronte. This is Charlotte Bronte. We already talked about... No, we didn't. I'm lying. We have not talked about anything by any of the Bronte sisters, but next time I will be talking about her sister, Emily. But now, first off, Jane Eyre. So, I was present during this lesson, however, I remember very little, but I'll do my best to sort of summarize what happened, what we learned. So, first of all, Jane Eyre. We have a novel about a girl, we see her growing up. She's an orphan. And we see her first leaving an abusive home where her aunt abuses her, entering a school which is just as abusive. She becomes a housemaid, or I'm not sure of the exact word. She becomes a sort of teacher and assistant at a house of Rochester, and there she falls in love with the guy who owns the house, called Rochester. This is him, this guy here. He looks better than Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. But yeah, okay. And she moves in here and she falls in love with this guy. And there are many creepy situations, like the house almost burns down miraculously, and she hears ghosts, and she hears him from across the hills, and she hears his shouting towards her even though he wasn't shouting. And she's about to marry this guy, and then she finds out something terrible. And she runs away and she becomes poor and she's homeless. And then suddenly, just as in all of these novels, she finds out that she has a missing family and she gains £20,000 in fortune, has 3 new siblings or half-siblings, and she's so happy and she has money. And at the end of the novel, she's reunited with this guy and they fall in love and get married and have a son. Okay, that's the really quick rundown of Jane Eyre. Now let's get into the questions. What literary conventions and genres can we identify reading the novel? Is it a realist novel? To some extent, yes, it can be a realist novel, because apart from certain areas which I will dive into later, it's all plausible. It's about the life of a girl and her falling in love. Is it a Bildungsroman? So a Bildungsroman is a novel of education showing someone's coming of age into maturity. So it basically shows her through different parts of her life and shows how she grows. So yes, it is a Bildungsroman. Is it a melodrama? Yes, it is, because we have so much drama. We have dark hidden secrets, and I guess I will talk about them now, maybe. So the first time her marriage with Mr. Rochester doesn't work out, because it turns out that he already had a wife, which he married when he was young and lived in Jamaica. And he has this wife called Bertha locked up in his attic because he claims she's crazy and she's the one who tried to burn the house down not once but twice. And P.S. she succeeds the second time and dies while doing it. But okay, let's leave that behind and we'll come back to it later. Is it a Gothic novel? Yes, it does have elements of the Gothic novel. Now I will take you here. Not here. Here, okay. So, Gothic tradition utilizes elements such as supernatural encounters, remote locations, complicated family histories, manor houses, dark secrets, and mysteries to create suspense and terror. And Jane Eyre includes all of this. So yes, it is a Gothic novel, and of course it is a romance, because the main plot is about love between Jane and Mr. Rochester. And it's sensational because it's a melodrama. So what aspects of social criticism can be traced in Jane Eyre? Similarly to Dickens's novel, which we talked about last time, Jane is an orphan, and because she is an orphan, she is worth crap. She's worth nothing to all of her surroundings. She's treated as someone unimportant, basically. She gets to be thrown around, she's abused all the time, but still she sort of does her best to traverse through life and grow into an okay person. It's up to you to decide whether that worked out. But yeah, the social criticism is mainly around the treating of orphans and the treating of women, because Jane Eyre can be seen as a feminist novel in some ways, because Jane many times decides to do things her own way and show herself as a strong, independent woman, not as a pawn which can be pushed around. One of the critics wrote about the novel that it was such a departure from the conventional canons of fiction that it shocked and startled the literary establishment. I think this is quite obvious. It's even shocking nowadays, which is a further question. It's preserved its controversy because, of course, who would expect the main character, who's supposed to be a good guy, who would expect that he has a poor woman locked up in his attic who's trying to kill him because he thinks she's crazy? I mean, it was shocking, and also the shocking elements of Jane sort of being this bashful young woman who doesn't agree to be pushed around by men. So it was shocking at the time, and while Jane being confident isn't bad for us nowadays, the whole element of ghosts and having your wife in an attic is controversial. How important are symbols? In the red room, the chestnut tree split in two, and dreams. So the red room, please take a look at the screen, is here. So it's a significant place within the novel, and it's a space that shows how trapped Jane feels. It shows her abuse. Her family members literally lock her inside, and she's unable to get well and get outside. So it shows how she's constantly unsafe and in a violent space while she's being abused. However, also, because she's 13 when she's taken in there, some people have theoretized that it's symbolism for her starting her cycle of menstruation and becoming a woman. The tree split in half. I couldn't find much. However, from what I infer, Rochester and Jane get married underneath the tree, and the tree is symbolism of... So it's symbolism of honesty and justice and a symbol of life. And it's sort of ironic because Rochester proposes underneath a tree, and it turns out he was lying and he was quite corrupted, etc. So it shows the alteration of moral values that leads to the destruction of human feelings like love. And because it splits in half, it sort of shows that Rochester and Jane were a whole until she finds out that he abuses his past wife and is still married to someone else. And after this, she runs away and becomes homeless, etc., as I said in the beginning. So it's a symbol of their love falling apart and of lies. Yeah, okay. And the dreams, these are sort of visions. When she hears Rochester calling for her over the hills, it shows that she still loves her. Loves him, I'm sorry. Some scholars argue that we can see both... Okay, I don't understand this question. I'm sorry. Some critics of Jane Eyre... This is missing a word. Some critics compare Jane Eyre to a feminist tract. Do I share this view, or can I find evidence to support this claim? As I previously mentioned, I won't spend too much time on this. It's feminist in a way that we're showing Jane as an independent woman who, in the end, despite all of the abuse of the surroundings, ends up becoming someone quite respectable. And she achieves most of this by herself, apart from the part where she sort of gains a huge fortune from dead family members, so she's not as independent as we think. But if we ignore this, then okay, Jane was quite gung-ho about life, and she took things into her own hands. But then again, I don't think it's that feminist, because we see women as some creatures that can be locked up in attics and killed, and even not killed, I'm sorry, not, well, okay, I made a mess. She does die, but it's because she burns down the house to get revenge on Rochester. I'm talking of Bertha. And she dies in the process. However, she's a winning queen because, okay, she died, but she also made him blind and, burned him totally. And sadly, he regains his vision at the end of the novel and gets to see his daughter with Jane, but Rochester was a huge dick, and he mistreated women, so it's not as feminist as we think. It's feminist towards the beautiful white Jane Eyre, but it's not feminist when we think of a Caribbean woman, most likely a black woman, being represented as mad, crazy, and unable to live in society. In my opinion, that is just quite racist, and if anything, it's the opposite of feminism. If we return here, the mad woman is also sometimes viewed as unexpressed emotions of Jane, so she can be seen as sort of Jane's alter ego, because at times Bertha can do what Jane cannot. I mean, Jane couldn't burn down a house. Bertha tears Jane's wedding veil, so that Jane is then at liberty to wear a less extravagant veil than she had preferred. So Bertha is Jane's anxieties against marriage. And yeah, that's it for this book. I'm not sure I did a good job, but it's the best I could do. Have a nice day.